For August the 23rd, we talk about Conscript, the Talos Principle 2, Shadow Warrior 3, and much more. Welcome to Level 513. My name is Cole Ross.
I'm Dennis Furia.
I'm Moxie.
I'm Ben Merkel.
And you're listening to The Level. It's a podcast for people who love video games. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to have you here, rounding out, getting toward the end of August here on our show about calendars. You won't believe what's coming up next.
I heard they patched it. I heard there was something new.
Oh, yeah. It was when they changed the Zodiac briefly. Yeah. Who wasn't here last time? Oh, go ahead.
Have you ever looked up the etymology of like calendar and like how they added months and why? It's kind of interesting.
I know the I know the whole Gregorian versus Julian kind of deal. Like the reason why October is the 10th month instead of the 8th, that kind of stuff. But
they just add in certain months in left and right.
Yeah.
And August is named for Augustus Caesar.
Yeah.
And it's called a calendar because that's how you keep time from going down the drain.
It keeps all the good time in and the bad time out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Moxie, you weren't here last time. What's going on? How you doing?
Not too much going on. My mom's visiting, so that's been running around Huntsville, stuff like that.
Tell her I said hi.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's pretty much just been chilling and getting ready for Dragon Con. Last ditch stuff for that.
That's week after next, right?
Yep.
Okay. Huh. So I mean, are you behind? Like, what's
Oh no, not really. I've just got to do a little bit of serging on the robe I'm making for the Gideon outfit, and that's really about it. I got the Femboy Hooters shirt in the mail today, so that's going to be one of them. And
did you show it to your mom?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wish you luck getting over the finish line there. Let's see, Dennis, how about you? What's going on?
Oh man, I mean, this is the first week. Will be the first full week by the time people are listening to it of my kids being back at school, and so that has been wonderful. It's quiet as I mentioned last time. I don't know what to do. But I've got my class starting up, the class I teach at Miami University. So I got to get all that stuff uploaded, and it's an online asynchronous course. So not too much to do, especially for weeks where the video that I've done is relevant still.
Oh, yeah.
I always circle back through and just check. I'm like, okay, has anything changed? Is there new stuff I want to talk about on this topic? But mostly it's just pushing the button to have the class go live with the previous content. So prepping for that is my big thing.
Is that something you only do in the fall?
No, I've done it in the fall and the spring semester.
Okay.
For God, how time flies. I want to say this is my third or fourth year doing it.
It's got to be about that, yeah.
Yeah, you think they'd have solved the business of video games by now, but it keeps on changing.
Yeah, no, there's always more money to be made. Yeah. Oh, well, that's cool. Hope the kids are having fun. Oh, go ahead.
So when do you get tenure?
That's a good question. I think I just declare it.
Okay.
It's like bankruptcy. You shout it.
No takey backsies.
That's right. Yeah. It's so funny because like they brought me on specifically to create this course, and I'm an adjunct professor. Like it's the only thing I teach, and I made it. So it's not like they have anyone else that knows how to teach it. And it's not like part of the core curriculum. So I couldn't hold their feet to the fire that way. But at the same time, it's like, if students are getting stuff out of it and I'm happy with it, the establishment really has no reason to touch it.
Yeah.
So we'll call that effective tenure.
Yeah.
And anyone actually in academia is probably seething at me right now. So sorry.
You're effectively making a product, everybody in academia. Have fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not entirely how I feel. Sweet.
Only about 90%.
That's in there. Ben, I forgot you had a big thing happen this past week.
That's right. I posted a picture in the backstage. I officiated a wedding last week. So it was a lot of fun. It was a super long day though. We went up to Mount Baker, which is like 3.5 hours from where I am. And
holy cow.
We had a wedding on a mountainside and took a bunch of pictures and then came home. And so
that's really cool.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
bonkers backdrop. Yeah, nice.
I still have to turn in the form, but otherwise we're gonna lock it in as a win and one wedding down. So
nice. Is there? Sorry, this is talking about a photo that people listening can't see, but is there like a little mini stacking stones thing at your feet? Were you killing time between readings by making nature found art sculpture?
It's the proper term is a cairn, I believe, is what those things are. And I knocked one over stepping backwards. I think there's one other that was left standing. But
oh no!
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully that's not a bad omen.
Oh boy! Oh no! I think you need to make some phone calls right away.
Yeah. Why were you stepping backwards? Is the bigger question. It's like the bride was coming at me.
Well, like we were walking around that area. It was kind of like loosey-goosey where we just showed up to this area, but we didn't know exactly where we wanted to stand for the ceremony. Mm-hmm. And so we found this place in particular, but we were kind of like walking around and before we got set up. And then in the exact picture, I was standing off to the side because someone else was giving a speech. But yeah.
How much hiking did she have to do in that very long dress?
Surprisingly, we had to do like 1.5 miles of hiking, going both directions. I'll post one more picture later, but yeah, we had sunset on top of like the mountain that kind of overlooks Mount Baker, and the lighting was insanely good. Nice. And because it was like cloudy, it was like the sky was just this like bright yellow orange. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, and the way they build it is they're like, we want to do something a little bit more than a courthouse wedding, and so I thought they definitely achieved that result. So.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more. that gorgeous high bluff behind them. Nice.
But yeah, no, it was a good time. Yeah,
yeah, and you didn't say anything that made them punch you. So
no, I was really happy about that. The times I've spoke at a wedding before, I've kind of like winged the speech. I like knew what I was going to say or the main points, but I didn't write down something explicit because I thought it would be like more artificial. I am totally on the side of reading off script now because I did not feel nervous and it went smoothly, and yeah, so I'm about that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can choose to deviate from a script if it feels more authentic. You cannot suddenly remind yourself of what you were going to say if you're winging it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that was successful. How many people from your party did you lose out on the to the uncaring, unblinking wilderness?
So like in elementary school, I don't know if anyone else was doing this, but I counted the number of people, and there were 14 people. So periodically when we were like hiking back, I would look around, count everybody, and be like, all right, we have everyone.
Okay. That's
so you may have changelings, right?
Possibly, yeah. We have 14 humans and or mimics.
If it's just a raw count, you might have lost a few, but gained a couple.
So. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I have nothing that compares. I literally have just been working. So yay. There we are.
That's important too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a shorter banter, but I think we got it. I want to talk about video games. And to do that, we need to do the regular kind of show. What with the grind, the multiplayer, and the end boss. And why don't we get started with The Grind, where we talk about the games we have been playing over the past period of time or so. Moxie, I'm going to throw it to you since you were away last week.
Yeah, so I've been running around a lot, so I don't have a ton of stuff. Something that I just dipped into quickly to see what it was like, because it's going off of Game Pass, now it's gone off of Game Pass, is Shadow Warrior 3.
Okay.
I forget. I know I've played Shadow Warrior 2. I don't know if any of you guys played any of these or the old Shadow Warrior games.
I'm aware of them. This is Shadow Warrior. Was it made by the Rise of the Triad people, or was it remade by the Rise of the Triad people?
I think it was made by the Rise of the Triad people.
Yeah. Boomer shooter era game, mostly focused on swordplay kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the story or anything. Weirdly, the thing that I'm most familiar with a Shadow Warrior from is the fact that a level from it was DLC and Viscera cleanup detail.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
So, I actually did not play the original, but from what I understand, and this is consistent with the current games, a great deal of this, you play as a member, or by this point in the series, a former member of the Yakuza, where you worked for a company called Zillow Industries.
selling houses.
Zilla. No, I'm
Zilla.
sorry, Zilla.
Okay.
Zilla Industries.
Zilla. I mean, same
Yes,
difference.
That's what the Japanese call the American Godzilla. That was in the 1998 Matthew Broderick movie.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, Zilla.
Wait, Matthew Broderick? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, Matthew Broderick starred in the 1998 in the 1998 Godzilla movie.
With
I
Jean
refuse to
Reno,
believe you.
Yeah, it was
directed by the Independence Day director.
yeah, it wasn't very good. He was a scientist.
It had a Taco Bell tie-in.
Did he
It
get
had
to
an
sing?
everything tie-in. Matthew, no singing as far as I know.
Well, that's a crime.
Yeah.
Where's our Godzilla
Not gonna
musical?
lie,
That's got to exist, right?
Godzilla musical. Oh yeah, I'd be all about that.
Oh, that has to exist. Anyway,
If not, that's our next project. I'm sorry, the level will be canceled until we can complete the Godzilla musical.
but what have we run for decades like Cats?
Oh my God, yes. So I think he's supposed to be wearing some kind of scrubs in this picture of him in the Godzilla movie, but it really more just looks like Matthew Broderick in a do-rag. Yeah, that is an image I didn't need.
Yeah. So, sorry to sidetrack you, Moxie. Continue.
Yeah, no problem. Honestly, I think the main selling point of this game, though, other than you fighting like ninja and yokai and the series in general, is that your main character's name is Lo Wang.
Oh, geez.
And so you can just make tons of dumb dick jokes.
Okay.
They saw that coming. They had to, and they decided to steer into it.
Yeah, that has to have been intentional. Yeah.
Literally, this game is like 90% like dick and fart jokes. Like that is half of the dialogue of this game. And the plotline of this one is it starts out with kind of with you having, before the start of the game, having apparently inadvertently released a giant dragon upon the world, which has more or less destroyed the entire world. And so you were then trying to go back and find a way to defeat this dragon in order to set things right, I guess.
Okay.
But it's mostly a kind of a combination first person shooter, somewhat I guess all the way around, kind of a lot of Doom DNA. When you kill enemies with guns, they drop health. When you kill enemies with your katana, they drop ammo. And so, big emphasis on going back and forth between the others. Two, you very quickly get a grappling hook that you can either, use to, yank enemies towards you, or, to kind of grapple around the arena style fight areas. And then there's a whole bunch of just, you can get unlock kind of takedown attacks on enemies, a lot of which will give you then some temporary weapons, stuff like that. It's all very silly and gratuitous.
Yeah. I wasn't aware these games looked like this. Yeah. I guess I assumed it was more like late, maybe just because the original's from the late 90s. I just assumed it was more Matrixy. No,
sure.
This is incredibly colorful.
Yeah, they are very, very colorful, very over the top. They've got, particularly the previous one, which is the one I've played the most of, had this kind of fun. I don't know. I kind of punk aesthetic. Like your home base was a combination car repair workshop, bar, and like ninja dojo.
Okay.
And it's very important to point out that before the start of the game, your character was entirely unaware of the ninja dojo part. Like had no idea that all of the people serving him booze and working on his car were like crazy ninja assassins.
He just figured they came with the place.
Yeah, just as you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun game. Shadow Warrior 2 was much more of a kind of open world type levels, and had a lot of like loot drop elements, so you could get like, I forget what they called them, but basically equipment that increased your stats and things you could slot into your various weapons, that sort of thing, which I really liked, but I think a lot of kind of first-person shooter purists weren't as much of a fan of. This one, does away with that the loot element. There's some basic, like unlocking character points and like weapon upgrade points, but it's fairly simple. Just like each weapon unlocks level 1 to 4. Kind of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think probably a lot of more core first-person shooter people, maybe some of their core audience will probably like a lot better. The levels seem a lot more linear this time around, which overall I'm kind of experiencing as a weakness. I think is maybe a bit of a weakness if you're enjoying just the raw, just shooting through tons of enemies and just, gore flying everywhere, that sort of thing. On the other hand, I could see it maybe being a little better if someone's more into, more of a bespoke, focus type of experience.
Yeah. And it just sounds like they're developing the games in just kind of different eras too. I mean, wow, I can't believe the first one, the first remake was 2013.
Oh yeah, totally. So yeah, it's one of those things. I will say my overall experience with it in terms of the actual tone, it is, like I said, it is very much a dick and fart joke type of game. And so, that's obviously going to be, either something you can get behind or something you can't. It's not being an Asian person. It's hard for me to say for sure how much, does some of the like, haha, Wang can also mean dick type of comedy like goes over the line. It feels to me like it's, mostly within the, realm of being, being just fun.
You almost said tasteful.
yeah, exactly. There's tasteful dick jokes. But
letting that softball go by.
But yeah. So I feel like at the very least, I think it wisely compared to like Duke Nukem Forever and stuff. very much is of the thing of, while Wang is like a badass that, is usually the strongest person, most of the slapstick humor is at his expense, as opposed to having a character that's kind of that sort of quote unquote politically incorrect character and like actually trying to being convinced that they're badass. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
totally.
That's kind of that's the way you have to go with it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I probably not gonna win a game of the years or anything, but
game of 1989 maybe.
Exactly.
Especially since it's 2 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, is this 2 years old? I don't know. Yeah. Whatever comes
I'm just saying
Game
from the
Pass.
aesthetic standpoint.
Oh yeah. I mean, what year did Big Trouble in Little China come out? I'm getting big vibes of that off of this.
Sure,
yes, and that is actually a good point of comparison.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide how I feel about them just kind of taking the push and pull pickup economy from Doom for this. I'm coming down on the side of like, hell yeah. Like we only get it's a really good idea to change the pickups and make you mess with your tactics and your approach like that. Not like totally do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of that. I would love to see more games do that, especially because I feel like otherwise I think it can be hard to. I think otherwise you run into either this is a game where I've got lots of cool guns, but the game has to come up with reasons why I can't use them, which sucks, or B, this is a game with lots of cool like swords and stuff, but why would I ever use them when I can just shoot people? Whereas this kind of justifies both.
Yeah. The disappointing thing would be to like, oh no, in this zone there's a field that disables my guns. Good thing I have my trusty katana, which might be a little dumb,
little much.
Yeah, I could see this game doing that, but only if it was in service of a joke.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, a series that I have not paid attention to, but looks and sounds fun. Yeah. You have anything else?
No, I think that's about it. I've probably, played some Warframe, but nothing too, noteworthy to, just doing the grind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Who has something new?
I have one new game.
Okay, Ben.
Go for it.
All right. And this one is like less than a year old, but I started playing the Talos Principle 2.
Oh.
Okay.
Did you play the first one?
I did. I don't know if I talked about it on here or not.
You did.
I did.
I'll see when.
Is that kitten the villain?
Oh, and the poster of the game. I don't think so. And the game, I remember very little of, the first one at least. I know that the main premise of it was trying to talk about like consciousness and whether or not a machine could have consciousness. But that was kind of flying on a separate wavelength of you're just doing like puzzles, similar to Portal, but more like logical and kind of crunchy and less intuitive, but still kind of fun. So I was recommended this one from one of my coworkers who had played it, and so I figured I would check it out. I'm probably about a little under halfway through it right now. What's the context here? Have any of you guys played the first one at all, or the second one?
I have not. The length kind of scared me off. It seems a little long for a puzzle game like that. Although I understand the puzzles, which are at least the ones that I've seen, are mostly about directing lasers, and I have heard that they're actually really good and satisfying, and they go places.
Yeah. I guess like with the first game, I remember them being just very dry, I guess, where it's like not having too many problems solving them. Like, I don't remember in great detail, like my experience with them, but just kind of going on a little bit long, and the puzzles just for lack of a better word, just being a little bit dry, where it's like it doesn't have the same sort of intuitiveness that Portal does. It's like one of those things where it's kind of like a more complicated solution where it's like, yeah, I guess that's the solution, but like the turn of like understanding what to do to solve it isn't like an aha moment. It's like, oh, I guess that works, and like like that sort of thing. So at least that was my experience with the first game. This one is probably not straying too far, but it does feel like an improvement over the first one. They do a good job of making very clean puzzles, where it's very often the experience when you walk into a puzzle and you're like, I don't think this is possible. Like, but I mean, I guess I'll chip away at it and try and figure it out. And then eventually you figure out like, oh, I can do that if I do this. And then you can solve the puzzle. And there's like kind of varying degrees of quality with that, where sometimes it's like, oh, that was a really clever like solution. That's cool. I really like that puzzle. Versus it's like one of those, I guess that works. Whatever. I'm just going to go to the next one sort of thing. They do a good job of separating all the mechanics of the puzzle. So I'll dip into the narrative a little bit here. So I'll give you the basic setup for the story with like mild spoilers at the beginning of what's going on. So if you want to go in blind, whatever. But the premise of the game is you wake up and you are a robot, and you are in this community, in this Talos Principle world. It's after the events of the first game by like maybe, I don't know, 100 years or something like that. But you're part of this robot community. You're the 1,000th robot, and the community had a goal of making 1,000 robots and then capping it at that, and then building like this society or the city. Now, on top of that, and when you go to your kind of like welcoming ceremony at the beginning, this weird purple particle effect, Prometheus, appears in the sky, says something, and disappears. And that's kind of the crux of the story, is that you are told to go investigate this island to find something, but it's like mysterious. And so you can explore the city that you're in, but basically once you go out to the island to investigate it, you find 12 different sections that correspond to 12 different sets of 8 different puzzles each of which add a new mechanic. So it's very very precise and very like structured in how it gives you like its puzzles. But that said, like the mechanics that they introduce are interesting. I like them a little bit better than the previous one, and I'll give an example of that. In the first game, there's a puzzle mechanic where you can record yourself, and it'll play it back, and then you continue on. So it's almost like a braid mechanic where it's like, I'm going to play this 10-minute loop where I go and stand on this switch to open this door. And then now back in my real body, I'm going to run through that door that my playback is opening, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. That was a mechanic in the first game. And this one, they have a similar one, but different.
Of Ratchet and Clank, by the way.
And Braid.
Sure. Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank came first.
Okay.
I'm not getting in the middle of this. But in this one, what they do is they have a similar mechanic where there might be 4 different robots in a map, and you can jump consciousness to teleport to one. And then it becomes a slightly different thing where, okay, I can control this one and go put them on a switch to open a door, and then I'll switch back and then I'll walk through. But it's kind of more interesting emergent mechanics come out of that instead of it. I don't know, for at least how I feel about it. Mm-hmm. The game's made in Unreal Engine 5, I think, and so the graphics look good, and that seems to be a common trend in video games right now. It's people jumping over that engine, games looking pretty good, but then all kind of looking the same, where it's like just a giant, first-person map that you kind of walk around, and the lighting all kind of looks the same, and the props of like trees and stuff like that all kind of look the same, but it looks good, so it's kind of it's kind of a mixed praise with it. But they kind of separate it into biomes along with the mechanics, where you might be in different types of areas, like an ice area or like a flooded area, something like that. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason for why they do that, other than just differentiating what you're looking at, which is fine. And then they kind of progress the story within that, where at the end of every island or set of 8 puzzles is you talk with somebody who's with this like purple particle entity that you don't really know, that you're slowly like uncovering more and more information about. But it's kind of similar to the first one. It's all under this lens of like ancient Egyptian or ancient Greek like mythology, and kind of asking like philosophical questions. The premise of this one is more of like, what's the point of living? So.
Oh wow, it's going there.
Well, like it's like already established, at least in its world, that machines can have consciousness as like 1-to-1 with humans, which you can agree or disagree with. But the focus of this game is then, okay, well, what do you do with that consciousness? And it's more focused in the same way that you're building like your robot city. It's kind of posing questions to you of like, what do you want to build with your life, or what's the point of that?
Yeah.
And so it kind of does this in a couple different ways, but one of the ways is they'll ask you very open-ended questions that are like multiple choice questions, and then you can answer them. And there's not really like a game payoff to it, but it's just there if you want to think about it or interact with it, kind of dotted or interspersed with all these like more logical puzzles that you're playing. It's a interesting experience. It's kind of weird. It feels like you're having... Okay.
Is there any consonance between like the philosophical concepts that they're bringing up and the mechanic that is being introduced in a particular spoke of the game?
That's a good question. They probably do that in a few places, but there's not any that are noteworthy enough that are jumping out of my mind.
Okay. I can see like, in a section that is mostly time puzzles, like, questions about impermanence or something like that. Right.
Yeah. Like an example is like, they're talking about like the idea of Prometheus is like punished, I guess, in Greek mythology. I think it's Prometheus. So many people are punished in Greek mythology, but I think his was the one where he's like put in chains by Zeus. And so they're saying like, like the person who made the chains, are they liable? Like, did they do the right thing in making those, or should they have like protested and said that they weren't going to do it? And so like they'll ask you questions like that. And so it's like, it's interesting that they have this mechanic in the game where there's no reinforcement one way or another. There's no, it's not like when you answer it, it's like intelligence plus 5 points or whatever. It's just there if you want to like think about it or interact with it. And yeah, so it's kind of odd. And the game experience as a whole is just kind of odd, where it's like you're in college talking to an engineer/philosophy major. And so
the idea of an engineer/philosophy major, no good will come of that.
I mean, I would argue at least philosophy is very close to like mathematics. It's just kind of what the subject that you're talking about is different, but I think a lot of the patterns are similar between the two majors. Whether that corresponds to like engineering or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, anyway. But if you would find that sort of thing interesting, then you might find this game interesting. If you would find that completely boring or like rote, then maybe you would not like this game. I'm probably gonna finish it. I'm under halfway through. I'm going to keep going, but like I find myself like only playing for like maybe an hour or two and like wanting to take like a decent break. Just kind of being like puzzled out.
That's a solid chunk.
Yeah. That's basically how I play games all the time.
Well, shoot.
Then we didn't want to say anything, but
yeah, I know. It's kind of like a similar progression as the first game too, where it's like it kind of starts collapsing under the weight of its own complexity. Where like by the time you like, I think I'm on the 5th or 6th island now, and by the time you get there, like they'll start having all the mechanics and the same puzzles, and it's like you can do stuff with it, but yeah, it's just like it's a lot, and it's like
that does support the experience of talking to a freshman philosophy major.
Collapsing under the weight of its own complexity. I forget who it was somebody like talking about like puzzle design, where they talk about like it's not hard to make a complicated puzzle, like you just add more things to it and then like you can make a puzzle harder, that's not a problem, but like trying to make like an elegant puzzle, like that's much more difficult. And so I think it starts to suffer from that first sort of category as the game goes on, where they're kind of like, well, we have all these different things, so if we put them all in a puzzle, that's a good puzzle, right? And it's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. And that
are you measuring how much time it took me? In which case, yes, it was a great puzzle.
And it's not true like across the board. It's not like they do that with every puzzle. They do have like elegant ones like injected in their set of 8. But yeah, it does seem to kind of progress in that pattern. But so we'll see if that continues to the end of the game or not. But yeah. I don't know. I appreciate the fact that they tried to build more of like an engaging narrative structure in the game, because I'm more interested in the story of this one than the first one. Whereas like the first one, it's like a lot of audio logs talking about philosophy, and the stuff maybe wasn't as interesting to me maybe in the first game. Whereas like this one seems more kind of a unique concept to talk about. But yeah, I'm going to need like something to happen in the story beyond like what's happened so far for it to like, ascend to a better quality of game, I think. So we'll see if it does or not. But yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's the problem if you're aiming for elegance, you can't get there by adding stuff. Like you got to take things away for that generally is my understanding. And to have things become this big complexity snarl. When you said it was, 6 or 8 different islands, I was like, oh, and you go to each of them, and it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe a little bit like The Witness, and that each area is kind of themed. But that example works against me because The Witness is additive. But like, I pictured you could pick any order to go to the islands, and if it's just taking you to one, then the other, and then you're dealing with one mechanic, 2 mechanics, 3 mechanics all at the same time, that I could see that very quickly getting unwieldy.
Yeah, it's like it's similar to the number of relationships when you add people. It's like a complete graph or whatever. Where it's like if there's 4 people, there's like 6 relationships there, and if there's 5, then it's like it gets bigger and bigger and just balloons. It's kind of like the same thing in game form.
Unless you're polyamorous, in which case it's all one relationship.
But it's I don't know. You don't want to hold the perfect example of a game type against every entry in that genre, because that's unfair. But you know exactly what I'm going to say. Portal 2, it catches you up to speed on portal mechanics, adds a couple of new obstacles, like tools to use. Then it introduces and forces you to primarily focus on the goos. And then there's the synthesis at the end. That is 2 elements becoming, getting summed over the course of an 11-hour game.
Yeah. And see, like that took its time, like integrating the 2 different mechanics and stuff like that. It didn't just have like the portal map, and then the paint map, and then you go on and there's like now there's this mechanic map or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know what I was saying other than just like I wish this game was more like a game that was made 13 years ago. But yeah,
I feel that way about most games.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, you're how many islands down, and thus how many mechanics up?
I'm on like the 5th or 6th island, and I think I've probably played it for maybe like 5 or 6 hours. So about an hour per island. Cool. But yeah, to its credit, I do feel like this is an improvement over the first game. So I do appreciate that, the move in the right direction. So yeah.
Cool. What's the shipping status on your VR cord?
Dude, I checked it at the beginning of this recording. It's still the 30th, so I still am a week and a half out. Yeah, the status is like ready to be packaged, and it's been that for like several days. And it's like, well, you should just package it and send it. I don't know what the holdup is.
Why are you telling me? Let me know when it's here.
Yeah.
Oh, you got anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. Let's see. I've got something new.
Yeah, go for it.
Came out in the last few weeks. I streamed this past weekend a game called Conscript.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is a survival horror game that takes place in the trenches of World War One, specifically during the Battle of Verdun. You're a French soldier who gets knocked out in the prologue, and you wake up separated from your brother, who is also in the war, and you are looking to go find him. The trick to this, and there may be a there may be a curveball they throw me, but at least in the first hour, there are no supernatural or scientific monsters in this.
Huh. Okay. Are humans the real monster?
I specifically said there were no, I didn't say there were no monsters because I knew somebody would say that. The enemies are all German soldiers. You're not communicating because you don't speak the same language. But they are, they've overtaken the trench as happens, and they're patrolling and looking for you, and you are trying to navigate this puzzle box space and survive and deal with them while scrimping with resources that are extremely constrained. This is a top-down game that it's pixel art, but it is pixel art of pre-rendered assets. Somebody on the stream, and I forget who, but said it looks very much like a Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah.
I saw it, so I looked it up as you were talking about it, and first saw screenshots. I was like, oh man, this is like a really lo-fi, pixel art game. And then you see it in motion, and you're like, oh no, this looks pretty modern. Like it is very pixelated, but the motion feels a lot more fluid.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, when I first loaded in to see what you're playing, it shows the ad, and you just see the little picture-in-picture of you actually playing. I'm like, it's Signalis again.
Yeah, it is Signalis. If Signalis was not a like a PlayStation 1 callback, if it's a Game Boy like a Game Boy Advance callback.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
None of this is to denigrate it. I think that the aesthetic works really well for it.
Oh yeah.
And a trench of World War One is pretty indiscernible from like a Silent Hill Otherworld.
Well, it almost feels like with that, to me, it almost feels like this is getting sort of there's that idea where it's sometimes like making something less realistic can make it more true.
Yeah.
I feel like both the graphics and the first person, and the survival horror, motifs and stuff kind of captures that, where it's like, it would be, I feel like, almost less scary and then therefore less true to French warfare or French war. Wow, this has been a day. Trench warfare. If the graphics were like ultra realistic and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Do you think they were?
No, I was just going to say it holds true. Good, continue, Ben. Sorry.
Do you think they were upset when Amnesia: The Bunker came out, and they're like, "Man, that's our entire theme"?
I don't know. I don't know how far they were into development when that game came out. They don't share much aside from subject matter, and even then, like, you're trapped in this, and in this bunker, in this fort beneath the trenches in Amnesia, and you're not dealing with soldiers, you're dealing with one monster and the rats. I guess the rats are an overlap. And this one, okay, so this is really cool. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that point off and say they probably didn't feel great about it, but also, I think
it's different enough.
Yeah, I think it's different enough. So when I say this is doing survival horror stuff, like, they are pulling in a whole bunch of stuff that feels like it is callbacks to some decisions that were made in prior classic survival horror games. Case in point, the Resident Evil remake that came out in 2002 added the mechanic for Crimson Heads. Okay. Crimson Heads arise if you kill a zombie and leave that corpse around for long enough that it mutates again. And then it comes back way more dangerous, way more fast. It's Crimson Head. There have been other games that have done things kind of similar to that. You can avoid this. You kill a zombie, either you shoot its head off with a shotgun, or you use a very finite resource, just a like lighter fluid, basically gasoline. Douse the zombie's body and set it on fire. And then it won't come back, but it's a limited resource. So you have to decide, there are going to be Crimson Heads. Where do I want them to show up and where do I not want them to? So it becomes like a strategy game, strategy element of, all right, this is a centrally located corridor that I'm going to need to go up and down a lot. I do not want to have a Crimson Head here. This is a very distant room that I'm never going to come back to again. It's perfectly fine, right? In this, you kill a German soldier. And then you come back a little bit later, you notice that there are flies. And then you come back later, you see small rats going after it. And then you come back and you see rats the size of small dogs. And those rats, if you let it get that bad, they will chase after you. They will die in one hit with a melee weapon. Which is fine, but it is super high risk because though they do not do a lot of damage with their one attack that they'll get off on you, they will infect you, and being infected cuts your health bar in half.
Oh, is there any way to get rid of that?
Yeah, you have to use disinfectant. So, either special bandages, special medicine, resources that end up being more rare and more costly than the fuel that is required to burn the bodies.
Oof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's such a chain of interactions to
I know,
try and,
right?
get through. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did kind of bother me. Couldn't you just chuck the body out of the trench?
The trench walls are real high.
I guess.
Yeah. Other games have done this, have attempted to do something along stuff along these lines. Silent Hill 4 had the ghost enemies who you only had 4 or 5 of these special swords that you could use to pin them down. So they wouldn't be chasing you all over the map. And even more recently, the game My Friendly Neighborhood, which does something kind of similar to this. It's not specifically scary, but it is very much a survival horror game that is playing in the classic tropes. Classic structure of levels and stuff like that, but you have duct tape. And when you take down one of the, moving animatronics that is, going around and yelling, use the duct tape and tape them to the floor so they don't get up. But they'll still rave at you and go through their scripts and stuff. Yeah.
Ooh,
so
good.
This is the most interesting version of this that I have seen, because in addition to burning the bodies, there are also things you can do. You get grenades, but there are very few of them. The places where rats show up, you can search around and find the hole that they're coming through. And you can opt to use a grenade to throw it into the hole and stop rats from coming into that area. Right.
Okay.
So now you have a grenade to fuel ratio.
Yes. Yeah. And this is in addition to, there are parts of the trench where the barbed wire has come down. And in the rooms where that is the case, the Germans will respawn there more frequently. I feel weird saying that about a nationality. The enemy soldiers will show up there more frequently.
Did you guys see the global respawn rate is down this year? It's for the third year in a row.
Yeah, COVID really did a number on it. So yeah, it's really interesting and mechanically complex. It is resource stringent in a way that I'm finding enjoyable but very difficult. It's a neat little game. That said, I'm only 1/3 to 1/4 of the way through it. So we'll see how it pans out, because these games can very well take a shit at the very end. But I'm pretty impressed by it.
Do they have any mechanic like Half-Life 2 where it's they know how to give you resources, so you're skating by at the low end, but they'll at least you won't get in a no-win situation?
Yeah,
yeah.
It is like a less generous Resident Evil 4.
Okay.
Yeah, in that way. Moxie, you were going to say something?
So when I was watching playing, it struck me as, I don't know, I'm not sure this would be a game for me because it almost seemed like the resource maintenance was almost the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is in a way that is similar to PlayStation survival horror games. Right.
Okay. See, and I think the oldest survival horror game I played was like Eternal Darkness, probably.
Yeah. So that's kind of similar. Like when you say, the resource management is the game, that's very much the case. Like, you have limited melee, which you can do. It's actually pretty powerful. Like, and you can get stealth kills, which is neat in a game with patrolling enemies. So that's kind of cool. But the gunplay isn't any great shakes. You post up, and then you kind of aim with the right with the right stick, and then shoot people. So like the game is less about the moment to moment, dealing with the immediate threats. Like you can get messed up if you do very poorly at that. But it is not where the interest is. The game is in that resource management and understanding that the more that I need to move around, like go and entering a space, getting through it, and exiting the space, that is in a way its own resource, because I might run into an enemy. I might use ammo to deal with that enemy. If I don't use ammo, I might take a hit, and then I have to use a healing item. Like each of those things kind of pushes and pulls, and it's more about planning your routes and exploring the space in a canny way and manipulating your and managing your inventory space very well to make sure that you are not making unnecessary trips through these dangerous spaces, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's just the genre.
That's cool.
No. So it's kind of weird because I'm streaming it and people tune in and they say, "Oh, this is World War I." All right, cool. Where's the horror stuff? And I don't know. I like it. This seems pretty messed up to me. And there's no saying that it won't become explicitly horror-y later on, right? By horror, I mean supernatural, psychological, scientific, any of those things.
It's OCD horror.
I remember reading about
briefcase.
Go ahead, Ben.
It's OCD horror, and you just make the briefcase management like one thing's off the line.
Oh no! Rated M.
Rated M for meticulous.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I just remember reading about there was a biopic of Tolkien that did kind of his real life. It was portrayed he was portrayed by an actor that looked kind of like, I expected it to be Benedict Cumberbatch, but it's not. It's like off-brand Benedict Cumberbatch. But it kind of leaned a little too far into that craziness, like, the tank, and he's in World War I, the tank becomes a dragon that he's got to fight and stuff. And I think it's the more fantastical, the less impactful a lot of times.
Tolkien insisted that his writing, specifically the rings, that wasn't informed by World War I, which I find to be impossible. But in a way that turning him seeing a tank into that is a dragon to me is a little bit much and a little bit facile, because I don't know. The whole thing about Lord of the Rings is that it's, about just how evil power itself is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you've described to me is very annoying, Dennis.
You're welcome and/or I'm sorry, whichever applies most.
There's an episode of Hardcore History, like the podcast about Verdun specifically.
Oh yeah.
That I remember listening to, and it's like 6 hours long or whatever, but Yeah, interesting when you get to the level of depth there about the tactics of like how they kill people and stuff. It's very brutal.
Yeah, I've listened to the same to those same episodes. What is it like? Waiting for the apocalypse or something like that?
Yeah,
Prelude to Apocalypse, something. But yeah, just describing like, oh yeah, it's like it's like the surface of the moon there after a while, just because of how blasted everything is, all the artillery and stuff. It is ripe for horror. It's kind of weird that it took so long for us to get any, and then we have two in the span of 2 years. So yeah. Any other questions?
You know, someone had it trademarked and it passed that whatever 75-year anniversary where it goes public domain.
You can't use the
Damn it, Disney.
Oh no.
It is kind of interesting though, because it's like the events themselves are like so horrific. So it's weird to have like horror on top of that, and that be like the focus of each of the games, you know?
Yeah,
Also,
you don't need to embellish. It speaks for itself.
I'm trying to think, did Eternal Darkness, didn't that have at least one of the World Wars?
Yeah, you weren't on the battlefield in that, but there was an episode, a chapter where you were playing as either a French soldier. You were a French soldier or a medic or somebody who was taking shelter in the church where a lot of the chapters take place.
Yeah,
and it
World War One.
Yeah, it was turned into a like a triage, it was a.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Yes. So you were there, and the enemies had like run through it and stuff, and you were there after that. But yes, there was a World War I chapter there. It was a good chapter. I think it was Edward's chapter, maybe. I don't know.
Looks like Peter Jacob, apparently.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions? Any questions about Conscript?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I'll continue streaming it, and we'll see what turns it takes. Dennis, how about you?
Yeah, so I've got a couple. One new to me was a major nostalgia trip. I downloaded the Crash Bandicoot kind of collection that's on Game Pass.
The Insane Trilogy?
I refuse to say that. It's just the Crash Bandicoot collection.
Okay.
Was there a non-insane trilogy?
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep it next to Little Caesar's Reasonable Bread.
Oh man. Yeah, so this gets the graphical upgrade, and it's all 3 games in one package. Which it was kind of a cause for me to go back and take inventory, and I realized I had never played the 3rd game. I believe there was a demo for Crash Bandicoot Warped, which is the 3rd one, baked into Crash Team Racing or something like that.
Okay.
And I played that I don't know how many times, but it was just like the one little section of it, and I don't think I ever played the full game. So
was there something like a console change or something like that prevented you from doing it, or just moved on?
Yeah, I think mostly it was like by the time I got my PS1, it was pretty late in the system's life cycle. And so I think I was on to the PS2 and bigger and grander things just before ever getting around to it.
Yeah.
And that's I was in the life stage where like you buy a game and you are going to 100% that game and play it 3 times in a row and like milk it for all it's worth, versus being able to kind of browse and try things.
There wasn't a huge gap between Crash Warped and Jack and Daxter either. I could see waiting long enough after Crash 3 came out that you hopped over to Jack and Daxter.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the PlayStation 2 generation gap, and you play the new shiny. But yeah, so this is my chance at redemption. Although in completionist fashion, I have gone back and am playing through the first game, and I assume I'll play through the second game. Mm-hmm. At least so far, it's been pretty breezy progress. And I forget exactly how many islands or levels are in the game. But I'm through the first 2 already at a pretty good clip. So I'm hoping it won't take too long to get through. It was a reminder though of just how man, completionist centric those early games were. You know, every level you have completing it, you have completing it with getting all the boxes, you have completing it with finding all the secret unlockables, you have completing it with all the diamonds installed or crystals or whatever they are. And like it's one level, but then there's like 6 times you need to run through it to actually get all the little doodads offered to you. And you know,
trying to
that
replace like score rushes or playing for score.
Sure, I could see that.
Yeah.
Oh, that there's another one. There's a time attack mode. So it really shows how well these games fit that life stage that I just described.
Yeah.
And I won't even call it a negative now, because what it means is I can breeze through the game and not worry about getting 100% everything, and kind of see the breadth of it fairly quickly. So, you know, I'm not slaving away for those perfect levels or secret unlockables, which means I'm kind of clipping back through and remembering how much of the game I forgot.
Yep.
Is that a way to say it? That it's like, oh yeah, around every corner, seeing all the different things they do. You know, remarkably fun with remarkably simple gameplay setups. I think the big thing at the time was kind of Crash had the 3D platformer thing, but also 2D sections, and you know, some levels you're running towards the screen the entire time, some levels you're running away from the screen the entire time. They kind of played with those dimensions.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask. What I recall from this series was that the levels were completely linear, but were 3D. So like it almost felt like a beat 'em up, almost like a 2.5D.
Yeah, 2.5D kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like the Little Big Planet kind of feel is what I would allude to. Although obviously those came after. It's a double-edged sword, because all of the 2D levels, quote unquote 2D, where the camera is looking at you like a side scroller, are in fact 3D, and that allows them to do a lot of creative and fun stuff with, you know, secret areas, etc. But for the sections where it is purely a 2D platformer, it can be a little frustrating, because you can miss your jump, not because you weren't correctly positioned along the x-axis, but that you accidentally drifted towards, you know, your screen on the z-axis, but couldn't really see that because of where the camera was positioned.
Yeah.
You know, that said, it's from an era where people primarily played with the D-pad rather than the analog sticks.
I was going to say this.
Yes,
like
so
it was
that expectation was there.
A 3D platformer designed concurrently and came out roughly around the same time as Super Mario 64. You know, and designed for different systems. So like they needed to make it with a D-pad and really with no way to control the camera, because there wasn't that much of a way to do that with the PlayStation on that controller. Whereas
on the non DualShock or whatever controller.
Yes.
So do they ever have like Mario 64 style or Banjo-Kazooie style levels where you can actually explore and, you know, take different paths and that sort of thing? Or is it all, you know, regardless of what perspective it's showing from, all one path?
There are, I mean, there's branching paths in the way like a railroad might split in two, but they always come back together for the end of the level.
You're looking for secrets similar to the way you would in a Sonic game.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's not really exploration, and to my memory, I believe 2 was that way as well. It's possible it's in Warped. If anyone on this cast has played it and remembers, you can tell me. But it's that the exploration, very much comes from little tricks in the level of like, oh, this is just out of view or just barely in view, so now you got to figure out how to get up there, versus having any kind of large area. Overall, I'm still, enjoying it. And again, with kind of the objective, I want to breeze through these first 2 to get to the third one. That's serving me great. And last thing on that 2.5D platforming, I mentioned it was a double-edged sword. It can benefit you in that there's a lot of levels where you're running along and there's stuff that will like pop out to push you off the platform towards the camera. And if you get in a bad way there, you can just jump, it'll push you out. But then if you jump at the right time, you have enough height to go back in on the other side of whatever pushed you. So I've lost my life a couple times to that perspective. And then I've also survived a couple times when I shouldn't have due to that. So cuts both ways. The only other thing that's a bit weird is not the jump, but the bounce is really, really weird. You have to press the button. Like if you land on a box or whatever, if you press X to jump again, it'll kind of give you a higher bounce than you would normally get just landing on it. But you have to press X so far in front of when you land that it's really weird. To the point where like you literally can like jump and then immediately tap and hold X again, like before you've even reached the apex of your jump, the apex of your junk. And that will register as a big bounce jump for when you land on the platform. So adjusting to doing that instead of trying to time it, because trying to time it, it's always earlier than you think, is a bit of a weird adjustment. But otherwise, it's a little Crash Bandicoot action going on.
Nice. And you're finding the remake is, representing your memory of how those felt in the past? Like, does it feel faithful to you?
It does. And the upscaling of the animation is well done. Like it's clear that they had some fun bringing the slapstick kind of attitude to what had to be very Dorito-y originally.
Yeah.
So it's got very kind of Pixar Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibes to it.
Yeah. I never spent a lot of time with the ones on PlayStation. When we did Crash 2 for Watch Out for Fireballs, I played it on that remake. And though I don't care for that game or those games, really, it's just not my kind of platformer, It did feel like this is representing the limitations of the interaction model that were present back at the time. They didn't try to go crazy modernizing it.
Yeah. And that's, I'm happy with them kind of making the visuals a bit nicer, while leaving the gameplay intact, flaws and all. That's on the package when you bundle it up this way as a remake. So I'll take it. So we'll see. I gotta look up like how long to beat or how many total levels are in the game just to set my expectations on whether or not I truly should try to play through 1 and 2 all the way. I think my memory of it is skewed because I was so focused on getting 100% everything when I played it originally. So hopefully it's a pretty breezy thing to get through.
Hopefully.
And this is Naughty Dog who made it, correct?
Correct. This was their... I don't think they did anything before Crash. I think Crash was like their first outing.
Yeah.
Of course, Activision owns it now. They sold the rights.
Yeah.
Sag.
Wah, wah, wah.
Which means it's now Microsoft who owns it.
Yes.
So they could technically make unless Rare holds those the rights, they could make a Crash Bandicoot, Banjo-Kazooie, Crash Bandicoot. Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
The world's been asking for it for so long.
It cries out.
Or they would have been if they could
Halo in there.
Yeah. Let's make it a big old mess.
One joyful little touch on the way out is at the end of every level, for every box that you missed, the counter goes up and it drops the box on Crash's head. And depending on how many you missed, he will be various levels of either dazed, hurt, or knocked out based on how many boxes get dropped on him. So that's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's the big quote unquote big new one. I've got some check-ins for a couple forever games that I'm playing. One of them being the new season of Diablo 4.
Okay. Wow.
So
it seems
Diablo.
Like the last one just came out.
Yeah, it did feel kind of short there. I think they needed to squeeze in one more season before the expansion launches. So there is an expansion coming in October. And this is the 5th season, last season before the expansion. And unfortunately, so far, it very much feels like the last season before an expansion. There's just, they did that gigantic overhaul of the loot season with loot system with season 4. And now season 5 just kind of feels like it's riding it out. It's got a little bit of senioritis, maybe. I know there's some stuff in Endgame in terms of like I've seen people describe it as a bit of a roguelike feel, which just, it feels wrong even to say that. Like, why do we need to jam every genre into every game?
Did you know that Mario is technically a roguelike?
You shut your mouth. Yes, I guess that's true.
He just throws his hat on a roguelike game and he becomes a roguelike.
Yep.
Yeah. But the way it's presented, at least so far in the content I've gotten to, is there are dungeons, just instance, areas that you run through. And now they have these like gates in them where twice over the course of a dungeon, you make a choice on like, okay, enemies in this next area will either move faster or deal poison damage or something like that. And you pick one. The problem is that the second gate, and again, there are only 2 so far. The second gate is always a choice between a lower reward and a higher reward option. And I've never, Diablo is just not the kind of game that you're on the razor's edge, and a choice like that can make you or break you. Like, you're going to go in and want to steamroll things. It's almost a mindless, always take the higher reward, higher risk option. I've never been in a position where it's like, ooh, should I or shouldn't I? Like, I might not be ready for this. I've always been able to kind of raffle stomp it. That could just be. Oh, go ahead.
Is this something that might, I don't know, not be better, but kind of change if you're somebody who plays entirely on hardcore mode, hardcore, brutal, whatever?
Yeah, I almost thought about going and starting hardcore again because of this. It's like, okay, well, maybe that would make the choice interesting. I wound up deciding like that one choice each time is not enough to justify going into the entire other mode. Again, it is, even if I was playing in hardcore, it's just a choice of like, well, make the game slower and safer.
Yeah.
Wow. So directly editing down the difficulty to stay safer in hardcore just doesn't feel good. To my mind anyway.
So
I think what happens.
What are the? Oh, sorry. Like, how does this fit into the game as a whole? Like, are there significant rewards to this, or like?
No. Maybe an end game. I think eventually you get to a mode where this dungeon goes on forever instead of just 2 layers. Which is an interesting question. Like, how does that work with hardcore mode and et cetera? I think that's where it's headed. And this is kind of just the kiddie tutorial version of it. But even in terms of like what you're shooting for rewards wise, the reward system is basically identical to what was in the previous season. Not necessarily the rewards being identical, but there's one extra vendor now, and they have their own currency that you turn in. And it's another free to play system. They got rid of the old one and then substituted in a new one, and really they're identical except for the name. Which, again, I think they're just kind of writing it out for the new season. So it was a fun excuse to go in and roll up a new character, though. And I think that's the nice thing about seasons, is it just as you're getting bored with your current character, it's a really good excuse to go start a new one, try a new build, etc. And I've kind of fallen ass backwards into a fun build for Druid that has been the saving grace of the season, because it's not something I've pulled from a guide or anything. I lucked into a unique item early on, which kind of have very, very much build defining effects, and have completely built my character around that, where the unique is I'm playing as a druid. Druids can shapeshift into werebears or werewolves, And the unique gives you a different bonus. Like when you get a kill in one form, your next attack in the other form gives you a bonus. And so I've built around swapping back and forth between the forms in a really fun way. So that has been what's kept the season interesting so far.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any new story content that they're introducing, or is it all just we're waiting for the big thing to come?
I mean, there is, as much as Diablo has that. It's something to do with, like, there was a faction called the Triune that worshipped Lilith in the main game. And at the end, not to spoil Diablo 4 for everyone, but at the end of things, basically there's this big betrayal and Lilith is kind of in exile, limbo kind of deal. And so you are allied with a faction or a person from this faction of the, true mother worshippers, who it's like, oh, well, the rest of my cult switched right over to the next big bad and they're worshiping them now. So I'm out. I'm a true follower of Mother and you were like the blessed of her. So even though we were enemies and you were trying to hurt Lilith, so I was trying to stop you. Now that, now we're kind of on the same side. Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure some lore nerd somewhere has done a really cool video on it, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to push buttons and get shinies.
There to click on stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Now, this is somewhat off topic, but have you been following the expansion?
Just enough to know it's like the Spirit Caller class, I guess, is the idea, and it's like a monk-ish elemental focused class. That's about all I know, however. That and they had a kick-ass trailer, which is what they did.
Is that two separate classes or is that one class?
One class.
The monk element.
So the Spirit Caller is the class. They seem to be focused on like rapid strikes and then elemental infusions of those strikes. Okay. And I'm sure there are plenty of different builds within that, but that's the way they've pitched it.
Yeah, interesting.
Anything else about Diablo 4?
No, that's it. That's it for that one. I did want to check in on iRacing.
Okay,
because I think it's been a couple weeks now.
How's that? You did iRacing with the Quest as a VR display.
Yes, that continues to be amazing. Like just one on front of it's just cool to be in a car that way while you're racing, and that's a very VR friendly conceit. Because you're sitting in place, so a very natural fit for VR. And then two, because of how smooth and easy it is to set that up. Like it just continues to be a very plug and play. And I wish all things in VR worked like that.
Yeah.
So continue on that. I think the last time I talked about it, I was just, doing practice laps and trying to learn how to drive and all that stuff. I've now got into racing and am kind of into the leveling up of the game, I guess.
Okay.
It's weird to think about such a sim game as having that kind of level up structure, but it's very much there. In a way that makes a lot of sense. So you have your I rating, which is like your skill level. And so, doing well in races, makes that go up. And it's all kind of weighted and adjusted based on, the event and the strength of the people you're racing against, et cetera. But probably the bigger deal is your safety rating. And that is completely separate from your skill. So how you place in the race has no impact on it. It is purely based on how many incidents you have per corners driven.
Okay.
Which is kind of a weird ratio to think about. An incident is if you go off track, if you lose control of your car, or if you hit something, you get incident points. And it doesn't matter if you're at fault for it or not. Like if someone torpedoes you out of nowhere and you couldn't do anything to avoid it, you still get those incident points. Yeah. Sorry.
An incident would be anything that would either hurt you, kill you, or be very expensive to deal with. Does that feel
basically
about right? Yeah.
Yeah. Or anything that has high potential to do those things, even if you don't quite get there. And And then, that is basically how frequently you have those. And, per corner is their way of adjusting for different tracks, having different lengths and different complexities and all. But those rankings, that safety rating, you could come in last, but as long as you had 0 incidents, your safety rating will go up. That is the score that gates the different tiers of licenses and tiers of races that you can compete in, which is really interesting. Because it's not gated at all by skill. You could, it starts at D class and it goes all the way up to A class, and then I think pro level or something like that.
Yeah.
And you could have someone with a pro level license or an A class license, who has never placed in a race or who has never even come in anything but last. Theoretically, it's all based on how safe you drive.
So,
go ahead.
When you talk about these licenses and like the different races, is this like in terms of what caliber of other players you're playing against, or like what is a pro race versus an amateur race look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a pro race versus a D level license race is entirely based on how safe those drivers are. And, they have fixed times for their races. There will be, there's dozens of them, but there are official series, and it's like every hour this race will happen. And, people register for the race, and then it creates splits based on skill level. And so the bottom split is going to be all those D class, or is going to be all the high I rating people, the skilled, very skilled people, and the lower splits are going to be the less skilled people. But all of them in that race are very safe drivers.
Yeah.
In the same way, like you could have a D class driver that is incredibly talented, but just, is constantly off the track or hitting and swerving and whatever. And it's very interesting. I think that the community is as good as it is and kind of self-polices for safety. And it feels like, I've only run into a single driver in 20 some odd races that was overtly like dicking around,
hitting people,
as it were, like going backwards on the track to screw with people. And everyone else is doing their level best to, of course, race and win, but more important to progressing in the game, to race safely. And that has a very good and I think intended effect on the community and how they approach the game. That it's like, man, I wish other games had this. In a racing game, you can kind of define incidents relatively well, but what if you had like tactics shooters or team shooters where the level of competition available to you, or the events available to you, were based on measurements of how well you interacted as a team, rather than just pure skill.
Do sentiment analysis on the voice chat and then give you a rating on that.
Well, and that's what it is. The second you're off a racetrack and in these other genres, it gets a lot harder to define, what good and bad behavior is. But it works really well in iRacing to give competitive races and have a healthy community. So I'm working my way up through my safety ratings, and hopefully that's also coming with increases in skill level. If you're going to win a race, it's probably also going to mean you had very few incidents. So the two do tend to go hand in hand. But the fact that the caliber of races available to you are almost entirely dependent on the safety side and not at all the skill side is a really interesting approach.
Now, is there like a NASCAR mode where it's like, all right, the gloves are off, you can hit people as much as you want and it won't impact your score or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I guess that would be hosted sessions, right? So, safety rating is only applied for official events, like iRacing endorsed. Like this is our official competition. Anything that like at any time I can choose any car and any track that I own, and that's a whole nother thing. But I can choose any car and any track and go out and race it. And I can invite people to join that, and I can set my own rules, and we can say, yep, for this race, it's going to be in the rain, no penalties for hitting people. We're doing bumper cars all the way. And that's fine. And it will not impact your I rating. Or excuse me, it won't impact either your I rating, which is your skill, or your safety rating.
Yeah.
Which it messes with my head because I want to say your skill rating and your safety rating, and they didn't do that because it's both SR. But it feels weird to call the skill rating I rating, but whatever. But yeah, anything outside of official sanctioned events, go buck wild, have fun. But it does mean that the people who stick around and who are probably involved enough to host that kind of event are either wanting to race clean anyway, or they they're being very clear about this one is for dicking around, so people know what they're getting into. So that's iRacing. I did get my first win. I think like 7 races in or something like that. So I was very happy with that. Because people will be like, oh yeah, it took me 62 races to get my first win or what have you. I was lucky enough to qualify in first position. So I was at the top of my split. And then the second place driver decided to beef it on the first turn and take everyone else with them.
Okay.
So they enjoyed a nice hit to their safety rating. I enjoyed a race where I think everyone else was like 20 seconds behind me from the gate. So hard to screw that up, but a win is a win.
Yeah, you'll take it.
Yeah. So that is me. That's what I've been playing.
Sweet. Yeah, that's all of us.
Multiplayer.
Now it is time for the multiplayer, where we ask you a question and you answer it. Dennis, what is the question that you asked the nice people?
Yeah, there's a lot of video game adaptations. I guess there's always been, but they've mostly been trash. Now there are more better ones, although it's still a wide field of quality. So if you could guarantee that the quality was good, what property from any medium would you like to see get a video game adaptation that doesn't have one yet?
Yeah. So this is going from other medium to a licensed game based on that property.
Correct.
Okay. And I'll get us started here with Kian, who says, the Scavenger's Reign TV series showed off an amazingly creative world of alien flora and fauna. I'd love to explore that myself, but maybe I should just find a cel-shaded mod for No Man's Sky. Honorable mention, the Southern Reach Trilogy, aka Annihilation.
Ooh.
That'd
be sick.
An Annihilation, Death Stranding alike would be fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Oh God! Like I like both the book and the movie for different reasons, but yeah, to have that fucking bear coming after you. Yeah, good call. I don't know about Scavenger's Reign. I'm sorry. Let's see, Ben. What does Peter say?
Peter says, I would like to see a game based around either Delicious in Dungeon or Kengan Ashura. I'm assuming these are animes, maybe. Delicious in Dungeon is an anime similar to basically an interpretation of a D&D campaign where the series begins with the party to some degree disbanding because the cleric, sister of the main character, gets eaten by a red dragon in a dungeon. As a result, upon respawning, the party is lacking most of their gear and coin, therefore need to make ends meet. The rest of the party ventures back into the dungeon, but instead of stocking up on supplies, they make do by cooking monsters / ingredients found back in the dungeon as they attempt to save the cleric from the red dragon. Not sure if it would be like an RPG or Souls-like with a third-person action avatar-style gameplay, but it could be neat to see an adaptation of it. Kengan Ashura is also an anime, but features MMA arena martial arts combat of various degrees. For an adaptation, rather than a typical tournament-style combat, I'd rather see a Yakuza-like adaptation, with brawls taking place in the streets of various cities and having a storyline that follows suit. It could have maybe a Coliseum portion of the game that features an arena-style combat, but maybe that makes the street brawls a bit more Muso style. At this point, I'd just like to see something else from this property.
Yeah.
Delicious in Dungeon is a great answer.
I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen something yet. and we're almost sure to have something soon.
I mean, we do have Battle Chef Brigade.
Yeah, but
That sounds cool.
That is, I don't know. It's not as inspired by D&D, and therefore
Sure.
it just that is the very specific thing about Delicious in Dungeon that is neat to me. I've not seen the anime, but I'm just kind of picking at the manga about it, and
I'm watching through the anime with my kids right now.
Oh yeah,
and it is delightful, and they're so overt about it being D&D that they talk about, oh no, I'm low on mana for this, or oh yeah, they died and we had to go pay to resurrect them and stuff. It's very funny.
Yeah. Moxie, what's Lindsay say?
Lindsay says, I want to see them do a Hellraiser in the style of The Evil Within.
Yeah, I could see that being real cool. Yeah.
Has the Cenobites been added to what's it?
Dead by Daylight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Dead by Daylight Cenobites. That feels like it would be a slam dunk.
I mean, they've got freaking Nicolas Cage. It's got to be in there.
Yeah. Okay. Pinhead at least is in there.
Okay. What about a Hellraiser puzzle game? Just a puzzle box.
It's probably not far from Scorned.
True.
Sure.
Fuck, man, I'd be into it. Yeah, I got a little model of the Lament configuration.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not like a full on puzzle box kind of thing. It's actually a little bit disappointing. I guess those are pretty expensive. If you want one that's kind of functional, but it's just a box that opens in an unintuitive way. Has a little
nice.
Capsule inside of it. And now that weed is legal here, I can say that's where I keep some of my weed.
Nice.
It's like the inside of it is about big enough for a film canister, which is
okay. Sure,
yeah,
totally.
It's a self regulating in terms of not overindulging.
Yeah,
you can't get the box back open.
Let's see here. Case says, I'd like to see either a point-and-click adventure game or a paradox-style strategy game based around running an intelligence agency during the Cold War, taking inspiration from the work of John Le Carre, not sure. In the point-and-click game, you play a field agent sent on what should be a benign but still risky mission. Evaluate information from a prospective defector, only for things to rapidly spiral out of control. Possibly to take a cue from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy due to the revelation that the head of your agency is a mole. In the strategy game, you're in the shoes of Smiley as Control, or Carla, or a cousin agency, having to deal with moral compromises while working with field agents, political dissenters, and prospective information sources in both hostile and friendly countries, with the possibility that you may just need to deliberately send some of your own operatives to their death, you knowing that they're going to die, them not knowing that they're about to be sacrificed, for the sake of the larger picture. Specifically, the game would make sure to spend time giving the player opportunities to really get to know each individual field operative, contact, and mole, to make those times when you hang them out to dry, or when you find out you'd read them wrong from the beginning and they're feeding you garbage, and maybe you have to kill them, staying all the more. I like that second one a lot.
Oh, man.
So it's funny it's funny at Dragon Con last year, they went to a talk by two people that had been basically, I forget what the actual term is, but like the handlers. And it was funny because someone asked about, basically about this, and they, not that I think they'd ever explicitly had to send someone to their death, but in terms of what happened to some of the that sort of thing, and they were both like, oh no, you don't become a spy if you're not a horrible person. Like,
yeah.
We don't feel bad at all.
I want to say, Case, if you haven't played it, check out the game Suzerain. It is a strategy / choose your own adventure kind of thing, where you're playing as kind of a leader of a faux Middle Eastern country that has some of the elements that you're talking about here. Yeah.
I was going to say, this sounds kind of like XCOM, but like your soldiers tragically dying is like a feature of the game, not just like a part to scar you.
I mean, they're given a random name and some funky clothing options, and I feel enough shame when I leave my rookie out to dry. I can't imagine if the game was like deliberately ingratiating you to this person.
You don't step on that dropship if you play, if you're not going to accept the possibility of not coming back.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's how I rationalize it. Let's see. Ben, what does Callum say?
Callum says, Infinity the game, a miniature skirmish game. Would love to see a Shadowrun recent game style RPG based on it, or a tactics game.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what Infinity is.
I'm guessing it's like Warhammer.
Yeah. I did a search and it's pointing me to Infinity dealerships, the cars.
So I'm seeing...
Huh.
Okay, it looks to me like Infinity is maybe like a everything's miniatures game.
Okay.
So
a miniature skirmish game. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. I guess I didn't read miniature skirmish as its own, as like as a paired phrase.
It looks like Corvus Belli, or however that's pronounced, is the company that makes it.
Crow of War?
I mean, it is only a matter of time before the crows go to war against us, and then we are all doomed.
I've seen the birds. They already are.
Yeah, that's why you've got to stay in the crow's good books. They remember your face.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Moxie, what does Derek say?
Derek says, by the hoary hosts of Hogarth, there should be a Doctor Strange game. You say assuming good quality, so it would be similar to the recent Spider-Man games. Able to cross vast dimensions or realities, casting spells to take down mindless ones, doing rune puzzles or some sort of surgery minigame, and finding different relics / magical items from different deities, as long as it also has ghost dog bats.
I'm imagining like Spider-Man if there were a random surgeon simulator interludes.
Yes. This clicked for me that Doctor Strange would be a great VR game where half of it's surgery and then half of it's just making portals with your hands.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'd be neat.
Oh, yeah. You could do so much with the portals. Although I feel like, has it ever established why he doesn't just, my power is now to slice people in half with closing portals?
That, I mean, you lose your surgeon's license for sure.
I don't think he does a lot of surgery after he gains function in his hands back.
Man, I always, this is dumb, this is my head, but the person in the Doctor Strange movie I felt so bad for is the physical therapist that is convinced that like the stuff he does can like heal people, when it's like, nah, you just happen to have two wizards as patients.
Yeah. Let's see here. This is you, Dennis. What does Random Sum say?
Random Sum says Airbud. Either one dog per team, or always on the court, or all dog teams. Just more dogs playing sport games all around.
Yeah. I can see it. I would like it. Do it.
I like this. And then we can confirm that it doesn't say anywhere in the rule book that dogs can't play this game.
Nowhere in the manual. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did. Sorry.
And then
it just made me want a Dunstan checks in hotel management simulator.
I was not expecting that reference.
See, I'm imagining a tie-in movie for this game where a dog plays this game competitively in esports.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
it's
it's recursive dogs.
It just goes around its dogs all the way down. Yeah. And then the Ugly Machine says, I would like to see a Battlestar Galactica game that's a mix of Frostpunk, resource management with impossible choices, and Midnight Suns, turn-based tactics, and a dating sim that lets you deepen your roster of moves with characters and units, but also lets you find out who is the Cylon in your fleet. Battlestar Galactica already has a game, so I broke the rules here, but the game isn't too great, and this is the case for everything else I could think of as well. Yeah.
Oh, you could even get some The Thing style gameplay, you know?
Yeah. I don't know enough about Battlestar Galactica to understand the mechanics of how a Cylon is found out.
There's a
roughly,
great board game,
roughly
Battlestar.
20 episodes.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. And I'll do mine real quick. Dark Tower, I think would still be fun. Still be fun to do. Dimension hopping.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of game?
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, I think like just even doing like an RE4 like would probably satisfy. Do it like Evil Within, you know, and there are actually some similarities there.
Wait a second. This is just a reskinned Doctor Strange game.
Maybe. You know, it's not so much portals at will, but yeah, I don't know. I think that there's there would be room for that in my mind.
Press F to flee across the desert.
Yes. Ben, how about you?
So I don't know if I saw the stipulation that it's something that hasn't been a game before or not. But my original answer was Detroit Become Eldritch. So like a HP Lovecraft version, but it's like a choice game in the same vein of a Quantum Dream game. Just because the built-in mechanic that everything can fall to shit in the first third of the act or something like that and everyone dies. Mm-hmm. That would be nice to have that like all the way throughout. Or just have a good game that's a Cthulhu game would be nice too.
Yeah.
Or a good game that's a Quantum Dream game.
Yeah.
Oh, come on now. Hold on.
You don't want it to be you don't want it to be Quantic Dream. You want it to be super massive.
I want it to be the first half of a Quantic Dream game.
I'd rather not have David Cage involved at all. We have Supermassive. We do not need. We have gone past the need for a. Yeah,
we're in post Cage society.
We have David Cage at home, and it's actually like the better version.
Yes. Yeah.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Let's see here, Moxie. How about you?
All right, I'm going to run through of a couple. Chainsaw Man as a Suda 51 game, I think could be pretty sweet.
Natural fit.
Mm-hmm. Riffing off of Random Sum, I don't know if we can do just real world things, but one of the like protest dogs, like the dogs that show up to have showed up to protest and just started attacking like the riot police and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. Although my one that I think is a interesting angle on this question, and I am ignoring they haven't made a game of it before, is Resident Evil. Because the movies were completely different than the games, but I think would actually make good games.
Okay.
Wait, was that the multiplayer one that quickly disappeared?
That really didn't have much to do with the movies.
No, I just want to play. Was it Alice? Was that the character?
Yeah, that's Mila Jovovich's character.
Yeah,
Alice.
yeah. I just want to like gun kata / kung fu a bunch of zombies.
Yeah, there are worse things to want. Yeah. And Dennis, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull from the world of books. The Shadow and Bone series, I think, would make for an incredible either RPG or MMO. These are, I think it's got a Netflix show as well. And it's just a really interesting fantasy world that effectively has a bunch of classes that feel like really fun variants on what you'd see in in a traditional role-playing game. Is anyone familiar with it, or has anyone watched the Netflix series?
No. I mean, I only know the very basics of what it is.
I only know that people really like the clothing from it.
Yeah, they go all out in terms of the wardrobe. But it's like, the world has its own history, but instead of they've got your like the fire wielding mages and the water benders, essentially, that sort of thing. Like it's kind of tied to an element, but they also have ones for sun and shadow. And then there's also, I forget exactly what they're called, but it's basically like heart based. But we're not talking like, just empath. We're talking like literally control your blood kind of stuff. Where they can like feel your heartbeat and like stop your heart if they want and stuff like that. So a lot of fun ideas in there. And then literally the main character is getting more powerful in the show by finding these like mythical beasts, and then grafting parts of them into her.
Okay.
So fuck yeah. Like that's cool as hell. It would be right at home in an RPG.
Yeah. Can I change my answer? The Locked Tomb would probably be a really good choice. Those Gideon the Ninth Necromancers.
I mean, I always support this.
Yeah. Just do it just do a Danganronpa with it. Come on.
Could also have a really weird puzzle game with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I make a very embarrassing admission?
Oh, sure.
So you said Locked Tomb?
Locked Tomb?
Locked Tomb.
Do you think I was doing
heard
like a Hawktua? No,
yes.
not me. Yeah. I'm going to do it.
I was like, oh man.
No.
I don't know how well you could convert that into a game.
No, she's trying to convert it into a line of like condiments, and I don't. I'm not here for it.
Her or whatever agent got a hold of her.
Yeah.
That just screams like normal person who
got in over their head
is getting blown up by an agency.
Yeah, I am just continuing to have no idea what any of that corner of memedom is.
Yeah, the coworker corner.
The people under 20 corner.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh no.
Good question, Dennis, and good answers, everybody who wrote in. If you would like to participate in these in the future, you can go to the Duckfeed community group on Facebook and watch the prompts to go up on Monday afternoons.
The End Boss.
Now it is time for The End Boss, where we talk about things that are going on in the world of video games around us and how it makes us feel. Ben, why don't you open us up with some good news here?
Yeah, I just got a quick one. I don't know if it's good or not, but I just got a quick one. It was just the release dates for Indiana Jones video game were announced. It's going to be a timed exclusive for Xbox, coming out in the holiday of this year, and then will come out for PlayStation 5, possibly PC, in the first half of 2025.
It was unclear. It was unclear if that was going to happen because of how heavily associated it was with Microsoft. Good.
And excuse me, Xbox and PC for December, and then PlayStation 5 specifically for the next year. So
yeah.
I thought they promised not to do exclusives or something in order to get their merger.
I think maybe they did that with Call of Duty, and everything else was up in the air.
It was like Supreme Court justices promising they're not going to rule on certain things. You just say it to get the job, and then afterwards no one cares. Oh, sorry.
They went to the judge and successfully convinced him that there's actually only one video game.
We're getting closer and closer to that being true.
Yeah. So that's cool. More people get to play it. It's nice when it's nice when you make a game and people are able to buy it and play it. I guess anybody could buy it. It's the playing it that's the tricky part. Dennis, what's this weird video game anthology? What's happened? What's Secret Level?
Yes, it is a new competitor to our podcast. So we're going to get out in front of it. No, this is, I think, a spot of unqualified good news. They announced at GamesCom a new anthology series in the style of Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix called Secret Level. And it is a series of disconnected but thematically tied episodes across a bunch of different mediums, doing little one-off stories from the world of your favorite video games. And the coolest thing about this, when I found this, I was like, oh, cool, like video games inspired anthology series. That's sweet. And then I realized it's not just that. It is actually like officially partnered with a whole bunch of actual games. So things like Armored Core, Dungeons and Dragons, Mega Man, Pac-Man, PlayStation has a whole bunch of stuff in there. Sifu, Spelunky, all of these games are kind of doing episodes based on them, or have artists creating episodes inspired by them.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this is exactly what I want from video game to video medium translation. Like I don't need every video game to get a movie's worth of content or a television series worth of content. I just want it to take a cool idea or setting or theme from the main game and play it out in a cool way for 20 minutes. And that's what Secret Level seems to be. So I'm excited. This comes out in December, it looks like, on Prime. So
See, I think my take on this is it's entirely going to be come down to like how little restrictions did they place on these things. Because like if we end up with like a Mega Man game or show that's just like, hey, what is the ethics of making sentient robots whose only role is to like do construction work, then that'll be great. However, if it's just like, oh, Mega Man be hero.
Yeah, he absorbs powers. He's a super fighting robot. Yes.
I mean, that could be a fun animation to watch in its own right. But yeah, I think them tapping into Love, Death, and Robots is signaling that it will be kind of higher concept. And I that points it in the right direction.
Is that a good show?
In my opinion. Love, Death, and Robots?
Some of the episodes are.
Okay.
David Fincher
it's
directed
an anthology
one
series,
of the episodes.
Okay, yeah.
I do have to say, saying that though, I hope that all of them are super like, high concept, all this stuff until they get to God of War, and then it's just Kratos just smashing people.
Yeah, we got high concept in the game. Let's go smash. But yeah, the trailer is just a complete, neurotic smash cut fest. So
that sounds cool.
You can't really catch everything, but it looks like there might be No Man's Sky in there. It looks like there's God of War.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. Yes. And then Mega Man looks like a very like inspired by design staring down its barrel. Like you can tell it's very Mega Man, but it very much looks like a take on it. And then what was the other one I saw? Damn it. Where did
I got
go?
very excited when I saw The Outer Worlds, but then I realized that it was not The Outer Wilds. And I was like,
oh no!
It'll still be okay.
Oh, God. That similarity getting me every time. I also was very excited. I was like, oh my gosh, how are they going to do The Outer Wilds? And I looked again.
Sorry to be the bearer of news like that.
Thank you for not letting me step on that rake.
Yeah. I found it.
Can I just...
it looks like maybe Crusader Kings 3? That's what pinged in my mind. I'm going to share a screenshot.
Honor
you guys
of
tell
Kings
me if I'm full
is
of it.
one of them. There's a whole list of all 15 properties on there.
Oh, is that list complete? Okay.
Yeah, there are 15 things on there.
There's one entry that just says PlayStation stuff, so that could be ambiguous, but
yeah.
Yep.
So allow me to give my pitch here. For Pac-Man, just go to Roll34 and look up some vor artists.
Pay them. I don't know about that. I don't know if the world's ready for that. I don't think the world's ready for that. Let's see. Moxie, what's the story you brought?
Yeah, so my job here is to be a horrible enabler for Dennis. Dennis, did you know that instead of this nonsense like SimRig thing, you can just cut out the middleman and control a game using your actual car?
What?
Yeah,
what is this?
There's a dude who his Subaru, the engine went out and it was going to take a long time to get a new one. but he still wanted to, be able to practice driving. And so he figured out how to hook his car up to basically the controls of either a Xbox or a PC. In his case, I forget if he says what game he's playing. It's not iRacing, but it appears that the core idea is just straight up like, making the pedals go to the acceleration, all that stuff. So it should work for anything.
He didn't mod it into a game. He modded it into a controller.
Yes,
exactly. And it looks like this actually is kind of a consequence of the support that Xbox is doing for adaptive controllers for people with various disabilities.
Oh, huh.
So it's kind of cool that like, hey, they did this for that reason, and they're also getting really cool thing out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks really cool. Something he mentions that I don't believe he's done yet, but he wants to do that I think is a really cool idea is because of power steering, you can theoretically do like inverse power steering to add force feedback.
Okay. Oh, sure, yeah. That's fundamental.
So yeah. So I know cool. this whole thing just seems pretty cool.
This unlocks double queuing, where you try and drive somewhere and play the game at the same time.
Terrible idea.
Get arrested as fast as you can with that.
Yeah.
In the game or in real life, that's what you have to decide.
Yeah, neat.
This looks crazy. Yeah, I'm curious if the picture near the top of the article is the actual rig being discussed. Or if it's just a PC rig by way of example.
Yeah, I think it is because it's not a rig. Like it's literally his car. If you go near the bottom, he under like step 4, he has a link to a video of him playing a game where there's a picture-in-picture of like him actually in his car with the headset and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, too cool. Oh yeah. Okay, he's super duper in the car.
Yep.
That's
also, this is I don't know if you know this, the answer to this, but the one thing that does strike me weird is like in the rig, and apparently this is a thing, like there's the giant monitor, but then the person is just wearing a VR headset anyways.
That's good. It's nice to have
that does
both.
seem a bit redundant.
Yeah.
Huh.
I guess, if you got someone that has motion sickness or something like that.
True.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
And now you have ideas.
Now, yeah. I want credit. I forgot to say. I want credit. I had my first gear temptation this week. My gas pedal was not being responsive. And I took the thing apart and found like, this spring and it had snapped, and so it wasn't pushing back into position. And instead of buying a new set of pedals, which would have been really nice, I went out and bought a $1 little torsion spring replacement and put it back together. So I've resisted the first round of temptation.
That dam's not going to hold forever.
Lust. No, that's why I bought 3 actually. So. After that, I might be in trouble.
Yeah. Let's see.
This is cool. Yeah.
I've got one that could be a longer discussion, but we agreed to make this section kind of fast. So I'm just going to keep it on the funny side.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest new game coming out this week is Black Myth Wukong. Action RPG, showed very well in trailers. Got a lot of people excited. It is currently maybe the most streamed. It's currently the most played game. Yeah, most currently played on Steam. Huge launch, very successful. Made by a Chinese studio, which in and of itself is cool. Not a lot of best-selling big games like this end up being super popular globally, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say in and of itself because this studio apparently has like a really bad history, like its leadership and its work culture is really misogynist and gross, really? Like,
is this? Did they also put out some kind of PR statement of like, don't review us if you're woke or something?
Basically.
Did I swoop you?
No, yeah, I'm going to talk about the streaming guidelines. Is the main story. Go and look into the history of their statements and like the things that like people who work there have said specifically about the way women are treated there. This has turned into a huge discourse that actually like really mirrors a lot of stuff that you just see in like Gamergate 2 stuff over here, like because the heads of the studio said we don't want women to play our games, we don't make games for women because biologically they want to play worse games. Yeah, all the chuds over here are saying like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. That's why they're good. Gonna get all around, gonna steer around that. Some of the statements are pretty vile. But over this past weekend, when preview copies were going out for streamers, it came with some pretty weird. It came with some pretty weird stipulations. I'm just going to read all of these. So, for like, hey, if you're going to stream this game, do not do these things. Do not insult other influencers or players. Okay.
Reasonable.
I don't understand. I mean, like, yeah, probably good behavior, but okay. Do not use any offensive language or humor. To which I say, fuck you.
Do not use humor.
Yeah,
this game is no laughing matter.
no humor in this. Here's okay. Tied for the second biggest one, and we're into wild territory with these last three. Do not include politics, violence, nudity, feminist propaganda, fetishization, which it is code word for anything about trans people, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. So saying no feminist propaganda, it is literally just the studio and publisher trying to say, hey, don't talk about this controversy around us or exactly how we are maybe not somebody that people would want to support. Okay. Okay, next one here.
But they go so much broader than that. It's like, yeah, included in that is like, don't talk shit about our terrible record with feminism. Yeah. But then also it's like, at all, anything related to it.
Yeah, no, nothing.
Just nuke it.
Nothing related. Yeah. Next one. Do not use trigger words such as quarantine or isolation or COVID-19, which is very specifically a Chinese company trying to say, do not criticize China for the way that they handled COVID. Do not mention any of these things. Wild. So and go ahead.
Oh, I was just say, with this, the currently, or at least as of yesterday, the most viewed stream of this game.
This was going to be the capper.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, let me read the last one. Do not discuss content related to China's game industry policies, opinions, news, etc. So do not talk about China at all. I don't know how much of this is like something handed down from the Chinese government. I have no idea how much that actually goes on and how much there are like conspiracy theories about it, or how much they are just not wanting to get into trouble. I've got no idea here. So they put this out and everybody's clowning on it because who would agree to this? Like, look for anybody who streamed this and see if they agreed to it. And somebody who has no fucking just credibility on anything anymore. Like getting a week early stream of this game was more important to them than this other stuff. Like fuck that. And what Moxie was saying, this is the capper on it. It's very fun. The most popular, the highest viewed stream of Black Myth Wukong was by a streamer called Moon. The title of it is COVID-19 Isolation, Taiwan, parentheses, is a real country, feminism propaganda.
Good. Something that's kind of ironic here is Wukong's in the Legends, his whole thing is just being super anti-authority.
Yeah. It's an adaptation of Journey to the West. So I think it's funny that they tried to put those restrictions on it, and just how poorly it was received.
What did you think the internet was going to do?
I don't know. I think I have no idea what their intended result was for it. I was happy to see people reject it, at least the right people, and then all of the authoritarian shots on our side saying, yes, please say more about how awful women are, please. It's just meeting of the mind of the biggest shitheads on earth. So
yeah, well, anti-feminist propaganda, perfectly fine.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, it's perfectly fine.
That's the one where my knee-jerk reaction is like, what is feminist propaganda to you? Like,
well, it's just like
saying equal rights is,
Yeah. It's just like the fetishization thing. It's like, no, you're not talking about like I don't know, like blood play. You're not talking about or like air denial. Like no, like you would not include that if it wasn't very specifically about trans stuff. Mm-hmm. Like that is the
no.
code
There's a whole air denial play section in the game actually.
Yeah. Jesus, sorry, breath play. So that's what that's called. Fuck. Anyway.
Oh, you haven't dug deep enough if you don't know about air denial play.
Yeah.
You're into breath play? That's cute.
Yeah.
It's a very weird adaptation of Air Bud.
No, it's like a flat earther thing. You choose to believe that air doesn't exist. I mean, you can't see it. So
so that's the story. I've got nothing else to say about it other than lol. I hope this doesn't become common practice, and I hope that these continue to be unenforceable.
Yes, as we've seen in other arenas, mock it mercilessly and just don't give anything they say any credence.
Yeah.
That is the correct way to deal with these asshats.
This doesn't deserve respect.
Nope.
How do you all feel about buttoning it up?
Let's button it.
The credit.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to level number 513. Nothing new really to promote here, so just go and support the Patreon, leave ratings or reviews, tell your friends, participate in the multiplayer by joining the Duckfeed community group on Facebook, talk about us online, any of that stuff. Spread the word. Anything I'm forgetting there?
I don't think so.
All right. Dennis, what's going on with you?
Yeah, I think I'm narrowing down to like a late September, early October window for relaunching Deck of Wonders. So check that out.
All right.
And then another place you can get, I'll say it in a second, but another place you can interact with the multiplayer is on Blue Sky.
Oh yeah, true. So follow Dennis over there. I should give you access to the Duckfeed Blue Sky. We'll talk about that offline.
Oh, cool. Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. That's the end of the show. I don't know why I'm trying to prolong it. Thank you so much for listening.
Get out of here, you scamps.
Yeah. I've been Kole Ross. You can find me on Blue Sky at Kole Ross.
I've been Dennis Furia. You can find me on Blue Sky at Furia Games, or maybe on the official account. We'll see.
I've been Moxie.
I've been Ben Merkel.
And stick around for some titles. We squeaked air denial play in there for at the very last minute. I don't think that will immediately read as what it ended up being a joke about. That's all I have.
That's not bad.
I also had air denial. Other than that, I had tasteful dick jokes.
Okay.
Engineer/philosophy major. I don't know if that one's very good. The global respawn rate is down. I expected Benedict Cumberbatch. Detroit become Eldritch. And it's the playing that's the tricky part.
Okay. I'm going to need you to read those again because you went way too fast and there were too many.
My bad.
Sorry?
So, tasteful dick jokes.
Okay. Engineer philosophy major. What's the next one?
Yep. The global respawn rate is down.
Okay.
I expected Benedict Cumberbatch. However the hell he pronounces his name.
Okay.
Detroit Become Eldritch.
Okay.
It's the playing that's the tricky part.
Okay.
And then Air Denial.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see, Ben, what you got?
I got Rated M for Meticulous. I got Crash Banjo-Kazooie. And then I have a very weird adaptation of Air Bud, which I want to lobby for. Since we talk about Air Bud in the multiplayer, it's a juke, so that the joke's at the end.
Okay. Okay. Dennis, what do you have?
I had so many. This was a title-heavy week. So engineering / philosophy major is in line with Moxie. I also had I styled it as off-brand Cumberbatch.
Okay.
Nice.
And then global respawn rate.
Okay.
I also had the coworker corner.
Okay.
Recursive dogs.
Recursive dogs.
And then islands down, mechanics up.
Okay. I'm down.
That's got to be like 15 different ones.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm down for a very weird adaptation of Air Bud. It draws a lot of stuff together, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
No, any
Really
any
ties
objections?
the room together.
Yes. All right, it is decided.